extending contractual relationship through MOUs as members of the various civil society organizations, women and youth groups, the president, executives and members of the Press Union of Liberia, heads of all media institutions and media practitioners, my workmate, my think tank partner, my honest friend, Mr. Christian Nkosa, the country director of the UN Office for the High Commissioner for Human Rights in Liberia, and his forward-looking, result-prone, result-oriented staff. Our reliable, problem-solving, and humble team player, Councillor Asatu Bakile, Director for Anti-Corruption of the Office for the Establishment of One Economic Crimes Code, and distinguished members of the Working Committee for this well-organized 3 days anti-corruption dialogue. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, now I start my 15 minutes. Well, look, I bring you greetings and expression of conviction that we will reach our goal of establishing a national anti-corruption code for Liberia. My conviction is grounded in the courage that we, as a people, have built to tell each other our stories, our pains, our hurts and struggles, all of which we have endured from a corrupt system, and our resolve to fight this menace. We need to confront this enemy intentionally. As the actress Jennifer Lawrence, aka J-Lo, said, and I quote, "We need to tell each other our stories. We need to show that everyone, our neighbors, our families, our community leaders, everyone we know is touched by corruption," unquote. This is one reason why I am excited about this dialogue, that we will not hold back the truth, and especially as corruption is tearing this country down faster than we are realizing, and that it is deeply rooted in our national organism as the principal constituent of our chromosomes or our DNA. Before going further, therefore, kindly permit me to thank His Excellency Joseph Newman Boakai Sr., President of the Republic of Liberia, for his bold leadership in taking practical actions to penalize corrupt public officials and confront impunity. Similarly, I cannot thank our international partners sufficiently for supporting national institutions in fighting corruption, as exemplified by the collaboration that has led to this dialogue. In this vein, I acknowledge and thank the technical committee for working so much so that we can have such a wonderful, wonderful dialogue. Despite my expressed conviction that a national anti-corruption code will be established, I am rudely awakened to our tragic past when on April 12, 1980, 17 enlisted men of the Liberian army dethroned the constitutional governor of Liberia, inhumanly butchered the incumbent president, dislodged the governing system, and within 10 days set up a tribunal, tried officials of the erstwhile government, rendered guilty verdicts, and publicly tied them to poles planted for the purpose of fighting corruption. And those officials were shot, bullet reading to death. The justification for all of these gruesome actions, as given by the People's Redemption Council, was rampant corruption, abuse of power, and misuse of public office. That group, ladies and gentlemen, metamorphosed into various shades of government. It left scars on Liberia that are still visible today. Corruption being one of the brightest. Ladies and gentlemen, you know the rest of the story better than me. The secret, ladies and gentlemen, I will not recount the several other failed promises of fighting corruption and the brutality that characterized them. However, I will be remiss to overlook a few. So kindly permit me to just discuss a few. One, the April 14, 1979 civil uprising, known today as the Rest Riot, which witnessed the incredible loss of lives, destruction of properties, and the earthquake in the governance foundation of this country. Secondly, all claims of corruption in government, abuse of office, and disregard for the welfare of the ordinary people. To date, I wonder if the government at the time truly meant to take corrective actions when it constituted the Brunel Committee and mandated it to investigate the causes of the crimes, to make recommendations, and it committed itself to acting on the recommendations. My question, did the government then fail in this respect? And if yes, did it disappoint the governed? Ladies and gentlemen, you be the jury. The launch and perpetuation of the devastating civil war that has forever redefined us as a nation and people is a concern. The dramatic restructuring of our government and constitutional order that introduced an extra constitutional arrangement is still bothering us as a nation. While we commend the many credible reports on the Civil War, it is more apparent today that there are still hidden information we need to dig out. We are told of the more than 250,000 deaths, the hundreds of thousands of displacements, the unshackling of families, the existence of massacre sites in all 15 counties, the desperate conditions of women and men still carrying wounds and particles in their bodies, and the adverse effects the war still has today on our educational, health, governance, and border politics. The problem is, the war was launched because of freedom fighters like the People's Redemption Council and all other liberators came to fight corruption, abuse of power, and misuse of public office. In all of these, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, is corruption a thing of the past in Liberia, or is it still a full-grown, systemic element and now becoming a part of our culture? Again, you be the jury. Declarations of corruption as public enemy number one, and no tolerance on corruption. My question, did we realize this as a nation? Again, you are the jury. Today, we have Executive Order number 148, a successor of Executive Order number 131, issued by His Excellency President Joseph Newman Boakai Sr. for the establishment of two courts, the War and Economic Crimes Court and the National Anti-Corruption Court. The President, buttressed by the legislature, recognizes the dire need to establish these courts to address impunity. Under the two executive orders, the Office for the Establishment of War and Economic Crimes Court is to consult widely and develop mechanisms for a national anti-corruption court. The reason why I'm to this podium right now. The OWCEC is to strive to get support from other sources to achieve this goal. That's a part of our mandate. But the government of Liberia is the primary financial, moral, and political pillar for this process. So under Executive Order number 148, the President committed US $2 million annually, payable in batches of 500,000 every 3 months or every quarter, directly into the account of the OWCEC. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the 3rd quarter of the budget year, yet not a penny has been paid to the OWCEC. I am told, and I definitely know it is true, that the President has instructed the relevant people to remit the funds to address the critical needs of the office, including payment of past due salaries. I am very, very embarrassed to report that to date, nothing has been done. We engaged seriously, but all in vain. You see, as Delia Ferreira says, people's indifference is the best breeding ground for corruption to grow. I want to report that there is real indifference to the War and Economic Crime Squad by those who are supposed to act, especially when directed by the President. It is a ground for breeding corruption. And this is precisely the situation today. Sometimes I wonder, what authority do I have, or can I exert, other than pleading with the staff if they decide to stay away from work because, quote unquote, they do not have money to pay their way to and from work. At the end of the month, we still have to pay them because we, by our indifference, created that breeding ground. I also want to report that I'm very happy and I thank God that his staff has never done anything of this sort, and I don't think they will do anything of that sort. So as we execute our mandate, I want to assure you that we have had a full discussion and analysis of Executive Order number 148, which grows from 131. Under Executive Order number 148 regarding the Anti-Corruption Court, the court is to be established and to retroactively handle matters from 1979 to current. We have identified several issues, legal issues, that will confront the operations of the court, including ex post facto laws and the court's jurisdiction. We have also had discussions regarding the mechanism to be put in place for the court to operate. Typical example is security issues, as well as the number of judges, court administrators, and others. That means developing a mechanism includes developing modules for the court to operate. And for that to happen, it means that the modules must address the very highly technical issues surrounding anti-corruption prosecution. We have asked ourselves the question, do we have the capacity on our own as a country to do so? Or do we need assistance from abroad? Without a second thought, we are very clear that we need very serious technical assistance. And so we thank the international community for its willingness to help us in this direction. We have also asked ourselves the question, will the court be sustainable? Since in fact and indeed, we are developing mechanisms to operationalize the code. Sustainability of any court in this country will mean that that court is provided sufficient money to start and the legal capacity to continue. Looking at our current justice system and the lack of confidence the public has in our justice system, it is clear that we must establish a court that will send a strong message of justice, not only for the prosecutors, but for the defendants as well. So the training for judges, for prosecutors, for court officers, will be couched in that direction. While we are doing that, we are aware that there are issues of collaboration